Hey, you know what I haven't heard since the 90s? Do more with less. That's what I haven't heard.
Do more with less.
Do you remember that? Do you remember
I do.
when people used to say that all the time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that and the other one was slow down to get faster.
Or work smarter, not harder. They would tell you that while they would also tell you do more with less.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the topic for today. Working with finite resources. I think if you're working in corporate America, probably you have dealt with this your entire career.
I agree. It seems to me there's never enough people or capacity from those people.
For the work.
For the work. Yeah. So for some reason, they know exactly when they want the work done by because they have a crystal ball in their head, right?
Yeah.
September 18th, this project will be live. You have 4 people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those 4 people are also working on other projects. Don't worry, Brian. They're on your project 50%. And they're on the other project 50%.
Oh, no. That sounds scary.
It is.
I don't know. Finite resources are not necessarily a bad thing. Because, again, I'll bring my product focus to this discussion, right? Like, finite resources are not necessarily a bad thing if you come at it from the perspective of finite resources is just like a human element. Every organization, every person has a finite amount of time. It applies at every level. So I was like, it's just something we have to live with. How do we live with it? We can deal with it logically, right?
We can. But I think it's in the context of the organization, really, because one company dealing with it in a certain way doesn't guarantee another one adopting the same way would be successful with it, right?
Right.
So there is part of that. And a lot of it is around this whole business of putting people on multiple projects and then expecting them to deliver 100% here, 100% here, or 50-50. But for each project, they're there for half of the time or part of the time.
Yeah.
Right. I think the other side of the equation tells us that context switching has a cost.
Yeah.
And so when you factor that in, really, are they 50-50 on a project?
No, well, I tell people this all the time that the Scrum model has a 20% overhead. So every additional team, every team, not additional, every team that you're on, you have a 20% overhead to add to your time.
Right.
So if you're on 2 teams, nearly half your time is chewed up by overhead. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, the overhead here is just Scrum events and things like that, right?
Right. But we're going into signs that there is an issue is the category we're going into.
Mm-hmm.
Signs that there is an issue. And the first one that you pointed out, that you brought up right out of the gate, was team members being on multiple teams. So now the team members are playing this game of I'm 50% over here, or I mean honestly the easiest game is I'm 50% over here and 50% over here. In reality, what I've seen is like I used to be on this other team and that product has gone live and I'm not on that team anymore, but occasionally I'll support them. So I'm maybe 10, 20% that team, but this is my main team, but also I'm the this is like in the Phoenix project, that guy Brad or whatever, I can't remember the guy who was like, what's he working on? Why is he working on that? He's not even assigned to that, like that kind of thing. Oh, well, he's the only one who knows how that system works because he's the only employee from that team that we rolled off all the contractors or whatever. Like that. In reality, it'd be great to say you're 50-50. Testers get caught in this a lot. You're 50% on this team, 50% on this team.
Yeah.
But in reality,
they're really closer to 20% of the teams, right? Because of all that context switching. And other than sprint events, which there's guidance around 20% overhead for that. But there's so many other meetings, typically, right? Planning meetings, other meetings, not sprint planning, but others, right? So people want to get together to discuss something. I mean, those kinds of meetings. And the typical answer has been, well, we're not loading people to their full 8 hours a day. We're saying 6. But I would push on that as well and say, really, are people effective 6 hours a day? Even if it's 6, they're switching context. So if a person has only 6 hours a day, but he's got 2 teams that he's on or she, how effective are they? They're not 3 hours effective on each project by far, right? Maybe 2 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And that observation is lost on people that assign these resources to teams.
Yeah. The way I used to deal with this as a manager is I'd break the day up. I'd be like, in the morning, work on this program, and then after you come back from lunch, work on this other program.
So there's a natural break in the day anyway.
And don't go back if you can help it. I mean, sometimes people come and get you, and people interrupt you or whatever. That's the context switching you were talking about.
Yeah.
But that was the way that I would, as much as you can help people, that was the way I would try to help them deal with, because context switching is just part of the corporate America. We're going to get into this later. I don't want to go into it now, but I'm going to say, in organizations that do not have a handle on this, there is somebody saying like, oh, do you really need another resource? How can you justify the head count? How can you haven't heard that term in a while, too.
That's right. It's been a while since I heard that.
How can you justify another head count? We got to go back to our yearly visit to the well and fill up our bucket and justify.
Yeah, and then the way it gets delivered down to the teams is, we don't have enough budget, so you'll have to make do. So Fred over here, Mary over here, they're going to be working on these 2 projects.
Right.
And on top of that, sometimes leadership will pull them out to do other things. I can give you some examples of that. Tech leads or anybody.
Yeah.
Pull them out and go, well, there's a conference over there and they need something for that. Can you just whip something up? It's like,
well, so tech leads are in a unique position. I still want to talk about when you don't have enough team members to do work or enough teams to do work. That's separate. Tech leads fall under that banner that we talked about, that we did. Did we do an episode on shared services? I can't remember.
I think we at least did. We talked about it on one of the episodes.
Yeah, I can't remember. But so tech leads fall under what I think as a leads pool of people that aren't necessarily assigned to any one team. They're sort of shared across a program or across several teams, and they go where they're needed and they help where they're needed, but they do activities that launch teams forward to the next level, or help teams get prepared for some stuff that they're about to work on, or help teams coordinate better. Or and I know we've talked about this before, or they have a very specific set of skills. They have a very specific set of skills.
And they will find you, they will kill you.
I just said that twice. Yeah. That the organization is not willing to spend money on for every team, like a UI UX designer or a DBA or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Or that there just aren't that many people in the market,
that is a challenge, especially nowadays, right? Finding people.
DevOps engineers, for example, like people that can come and set up DevOps from the ground up, deployments, no-touch pipelines that teach the team how to check in their code and teach the team about trunk-based development when they're doing that skill set, that specific skill set. And the best practices involved in there. Best practices, that's another one we haven't heard in a while. Man, this is the podcast of the 90s right here. Though I don't expect companies to hire a person with that skill set for every single team.
No, of course not. Right. So it's not feasible at many levels. Yeah. To your point, you don't have an abundance of people lying around with those skill sets. They're expensive, etc. Right. But there's another way this could be approached. Maybe you don't have DevOps necessarily assigned to a team, DevOps team members for the whole duration of the project, because you don't even need that. Same thing with an architect. You don't need an architect to be assigned to a team for the whole duration. You need them at specific times. Right. How about thinking about letting these people work on just one team for a finite duration, right? Yeah. So a few weeks, a sprint or 2 or 3, whatever it takes. Yeah. Set up the DevOps pipelines, et cetera, right? An architect could set up the solution, design, and so on. And then they move to another team, but not like splice their time across multiple teams.
Let's talk about architect, for example, because our architect is a great example. UI UX is a little bit different. Architect is a great example because it's a dev-focused skill set, I think of anyway. And I think of an architect, I think of 2 types of architects. Let me see if you go along with me on this one, all right?
Sure, try it.
I think of 2 types of architects. I think of the architect that lives in the ivory tower and comes down and says, here is your architecture, and then bounces out and you never see him again.
Right.
And then the team has to be like, well, this doesn't take into account. Like, what do I do? Yeah, right. And then there's the architect who basically comes to your sprint plannings and or backlog refinements when you're going to talk about the feature and says, hey, if you're going to do XYZ, either there needs to be some guardrails, or we need to consider building it in a way where it's reusable for what the other teams are doing, because maybe you guys don't realize that the other teams utilize the framework this way. And so that kind of architect, anytime a specific feature or whatever is talked about in a backlog refinement, you kind of need to let them know ahead of time, or they need to be flexible enough to always be optional on your refinements. So it's on their calendar. It's just you let them know when the event is happening, whether they need to actually show up, but they need to book off that time so that they're dedicated, but then you can make the call at the last minute, because sometimes refinements at the last minute you decide what the agenda is. That's just a reality of, again, your product person is also a finite resource. So you need to structure your organization with flexibility, upstream, downstream, what it doesn't really matter. The whole thing needs to be a little flexible. I'm also making some assumptions here. Assumptions that your system architect that we're talking about here is not shared across, I don't know, 30 teams or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
You know, because you got to come to 30 backlog refinements. Like, nah, come on.
Yeah, right. That's not feasible. Absolutely.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, so I agree. Those are two different types. There's a type of architect that will formulate the solution, right? And then they will disseminate that information down to the tech leads, senior devs, whatever, to the point where these people can run with it.
Yeah.
But yet those architects are available if there's questions.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily present in the day-to-day stand-ups or planning meetings, etc. The tech leads can go to them, though, as and when needed, right? So there is that model as well.
What I want to challenge you on was like an architect. Our architect tech lead doesn't really matter. They're all, like, in my brain, they're all kind of, they do the same operation, kind of, because the title doesn't really matter. It's some sort of person that's making sure that the solutions that each team is building fit together with all the rest of the teams. Technology-wise, fit together with all the rest of the teams.
You think about an enterprise architect as opposed to just the solution architect, because you can have multiple solutions that just are not cohesive.
Yes.
Whereas an enterprise architect would have that in mind, right?
What I'm trying to say is, at least what I think I'm trying to say, I wouldn't expect them to design something and bring it to the team. What I would expect is, in the team's refinement, they say, hey, we're going to engage on this new work, and then collaboratively, in the span of time in the refinement, they work out how the team can do what they want to do while incorporating the vision of the architect, basically.
Yeah.
And if they can't figure it out in that session, then maybe the team doesn't need the product owner to continue the technical discussion. They can schedule something separate where they're further defining it until they work it out. They can bring it back to a backlog refinement to say, hey, we figured out how we're going to solution this, and this is the way we want to do it. Now, a lot of people might be like, well, if they're dealing with like low-level solutioning, aren't they doing a lot more than refinement? I'm like, yeah, slow down. Yeah. Yes, probably, but like, if they need to get it done in order for the product to move forward, like, whatever, man. Like that. Yeah. Big deal, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so as far as skill sets that are in that category, we talked about DBAs a little bit and architects. You mentioned UX, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, UX is, on one hand, you have somebody representing the developers and making sure their contribution is joined with the rest of the technical solution, the enterprise-wide solution. The other way to go about that is someone who's representing the product person in that, to make sure that we don't put a lot of effort into building something that we haven't proven out yet. That's where the UI UX person comes in. Or there's someone who represents the customer when we're just generalizing what we can do, when we're just ideating. Oh, this is another great like, I'm full of them today. When we're just ideating what we could do, we're not sold on any one thing yet.
Right.
So maybe they're doing prototypes, maybe they're talking to the customer, and they're bringing those conversations back to the team. So they're extending the product owner in that
for sure.
discussion.
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I think UX is a little bit of a different category here. And the reason behind that is they're basically following a bunch of principles to their work, right? And applying those. And what I've seen a couple of different things done well and frankly not so well, right? One is to engage UX team members from the beginning when the solution architect is architecting the product.
Right. Yeah.
So build it in from the beginning. In that model, they can go away after a while once the solution's been designed, drafted to a point where everybody's nodding up and down. But again, they're available for the team if there's any questions.
Yeah.
The other one that I've seen is they're not there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not there at all. They let the developers come up with the user experience, basically. And when they go into BAT, we can call it whatever you want, UAT, BAT, etc. And you get some users on there, and you'll get the odd user who's going to say, hey, what happens with, compatibility with, people that are colorblind or whatever?
Yeah.
And they go, yes, we need expertise on that.
Yeah.
In comes the UX person. They go, this is done all wrong.
Yeah.
We should have built it in.
Yeah.
So that I've seen, unfortunately, more often.
But I think there's phases here. I think that's the idea I was kind of working out, which was when you're about to go into building something, you want your UI UX designer involved, kind of mocking. If you have any suggestions, please put them in the comments, please, because I'm on my quest now to come up with interactive wireframes. So wireframes you can click through and you can show data and stuff like that. And the tools that are out there, there's a lot of heavyweight tools out there for this, and I don't want to get into heavyweight.
Right.
Like I want to make a screen design. I want to be done in a half an hour. It doesn't have to look great. It can look rudimentary. It can look lo-fi, but I want to be done in a half. I want to be able to mock up a design
very quickly.
in a half an hour to an hour. I'd be able to publish it. What even language is that? And then let people click through the experience, and then I'll meet with them and be like, what did you like about it? Or maybe it'll turn into a survey. I don't know. I want to be able to do that as the product person. Obviously, bigger companies, they delegate that off to the UI UX designer.
Sure.
Which, certainly, they have the skills to do it. A lot of UI UX designers are very artistic, so they can work with these tools way more efficiently than I can. But basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to separate the two phases. I'm trying to separate what should we build from how should we build it. And I'm trying to separate those two so that what should we build, just what you said. Well, I passed the UI UX design off to the developers, and they came up with something that it's functional, it works, but maybe the flow is clunky. Maybe it's not apparent to the user what they should click next or what they're doing in different steps. That kind of stuff. All that stuff, it's all inside the expertise of the UI UX designer. I would expect all that to be done already before you start saying, how can I architect this all into my larger suite of software?
If you were lucky enough to have a person like that engage on your team from the beginning, perfect, right?
You're right, yeah.
Oftentimes, you don't have that luxury.
No, and I am going to do it.
Right.
I am going to. I'm obviously not everyone's like, oh, Brian, I'm too busy or whatever. There's legitimate reasons, right?
Right.
But do something.
The mock-up idea is really, really good. Get users to click on it, not just internal people to the team, right?
Yeah.
Just get users to click on it, and they'll come up with suggestions. Take those in, build them into the solution. That is the right way to do it. But again, I've not seen that too often, sadly. So that's another type of shared resource.
Yeah.
What are some of the other types that you've seen?
Testers,
yeah.
hands
absolutely.
down. The normal people I see split between teams are testers, either just purely test, manual testers, whatever. They just don't have the organization just, when given the choice between putting their dollars into $2 out of $3 into a tester or $3 out of $3 into another developer, they will choose to hire another developer 100% of the time. They won't even think about it. So what you find out is the organization becomes strapped for testers, and the few remaining testers that still work there or whatever, right? That's usually the way this happens. They become asked to kind of straddle more than one team and more than one product, more than one backlog, right? More than one product owner. And I'm not even digging in now to segments of testing, like the people that just do automation, the people that just do testing, performance testing, that kind of stuff, stress testing, penetration testing. I'm not even digging into that, because you get even more teams, less resources when you go further into a speciality of testing. But yeah, testers.
Definitely testers, and certain types even more so, right? To your point, automation or performance testers that focus just on benchmarking and making sure that the solution is meeting performance needs. Those guys aren't typically engaged early on, because the contrary argument to that is, we don't have a solution yet. We don't need them yet.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Performance tests, right? Wait.
Yeah,
and that's a mistake. Because if you bring them in early on, they will be able to provide input on how to build it right so that it does perform. Then it becomes a validation exercise for them.
Yeah, this one's trying to put out a fire from inside the burning building right here. This one is I have strong opinions about this one. I don't know how much progress we're going to make on this one, because organizations either get this one or they don't get this one. It also depends on who's running the organizations, whether they see value in having professional testers or not. I don't know. I struggle with this one. That's part of why I got out of testing as a discipline, as a career path. There's just a lot of organizations out there that they're like quality. They don't care about quality.
They don't.
I mean, you can't say they don't care. They'll be like, "Oh, Brian, you're just being ridiculous. You're just being incendiary. We totally care about quality." I was like, do you care about quality first? Well, no.
Right.
No, we need to weigh quality against these other things that we want, and decide that speed to market is more important than quality. This goes back to vision, communicating your vision. If you go to a tester, oh boy, no, we're on a tangent of Brian's on the. My background's in testing for anyone listening to this. Like that's where I came up through QA teams early in my career, so that's why I can kind of speak on this from an informed opinion, as opposed to the rest of the podcast.
Yeah. What is that? Uninformed opinion?
Yeah. Enjoy my uninformed opinions. Most organizations don't come at it from laying out the vision to say, well, look, we have X amount of dollars,
right?
And speed to market is more important in these instances. So, yes, we're going to cut back on testing.
Yep.
Or yes, we're not going to hire this other tester, and you're it. The one person is it. So, how can we most effectively utilize our one test resource when we have 20 developers? Like, what's the best way to use that?
Right.
And they have real conversations. They do the best they can. Now, is that a great ratio? Probably not.
It's not.
Organization that's already asking those questions, they probably are not in a good spot. But you're right. So when you are discussing a feature, let's go back to what we were talking about before. You're in the world of bringing your solution architect, your dev lead, whatever tech lead, with your product person into a discussion. You're talking about building a feature for the first time. That's a great place for your tester to be, because they've probably already talked with the business about why you're building things. They're exploring how customers are going to be using things, and they can speak to your development team about what tests should we run, so that your developers, again, I'm making a lot of assumptions that you're doing good at unit testing, you're doing some automation, you know what I mean? You're getting your UAT phase that you pass off to the customers. There's a bit of thinking like the customer when you're architecting your tests. Some of that stuff can be built into unit tests.
Yep.
Okay, so the tester is bringing an analytical mindset to how the customer is going to be using things, and bringing those tests to the early discussions.
How many teams have you worked on where that has happened?
Very few.
This is the problem.
Very few.
This is it's not like we don't know what to do. We know what to do.
Very few, and also my also like dagger in the side, my little jab is also none that have been run by development, because the development wing views testers as just check boxes that the functionality works as spec'd out, as written, and that's your job. After the widgets get done with the entire line, you check them at the end of the line.
Inspect for quality at the end.
That's what they view your role as. Which is kind of wild to me when I think, like...
Wow. Isn't that what the auto manufacturers did way back?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like I always push back on this, successfully or not, right? Right? I always push back on this because I was like, it's kind of wild that so many testers are rolled under the development department, because professional testing and professional software engineering, they're not the same career field. So why would you put a developer over in a supervisory position to Professional testers and expect that they're going to do a good job under that? It's very, very strange. Like, feel free to, like, I promise not to deploy my bot farm at you in the comments. I might cut that out. That's too good.
Oh, no.
I promise to question critically if you want to beat me up on that one in the comments. Because, again, my experience, the people that are in charge of, hey, I'm going to jam out this widget as fast as possible because the businesses beat me up for deadlines, especially development departments where they don't have strong product at their company. Oh boy, I almost want to go out on a limb and say you got no business supervising testers. I almost want to say that testers should be over here in the product area, supervised by the product people, because you want people testing your software that are representing the users of your software.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how else would you guarantee a fit for purpose on the solution?
Otherwise, it becomes another vanity metric. Actually,
it does, because it's implemented as specified, right? Yeah. It meets the ACs.
Yeah.
So what? Right? It meets the ACs,
yeah.
And it's not effective.
Right.
That's the thing, because it doesn't meet the fit for purpose, and that purview doesn't come from the development team. That has to come from the business side.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are the consumers of this product.
Yeah. So we're halfway through this podcast. Let's flip to fixes. Like, what can we do to solve some of these issues, some of these constraints on resources? But before we flip to real fixes, let's flip to fixes that are fixes in disguise. Faux fixes, pseudo fixes.
Pseudo fixes.
I like faux fixes. I like
faux fixes
because it's two F's in a row and it's tough to say.
Plus, you get bonus points for using a French word.
Because I know, right? Yeah, I'm a big fan of using French word. Because another thing that we didn't talk about for shared resources was, hey, here we are, was Agile coaches. Because you hire an Agile coach and now your agility is fixed. You hire an Agile coach and they're going to coach across 10 teams,
right? And
they're going to fix all your issues because you have one and they're shared across 10 teams, right?
Yeah,
that's a real. I mean, I don't feel like I'm stretching very far.
No, you're not at all, right? Because think how shall I phrase this? I think the typical, I'll say it, narrow-minded kind of viewpoint is, we'd rather spend the money on developers. So they're not doing things right. Well, coach will come in there and just kind of metaphorically slap them around a little bit, make sure they're doing the right thing, and then they can take off. Well, what do you think happens when they take off, right? Chaos ensues. So yeah, there is this thing too with Agile coaches that put them on 10 teams, put them on as many teams as you can, right? And they're not there to not only implement good practices, but to make sure that those are being sustainably followed.
Yeah.
Right. That's a huge issue.
Yeah, I bring that one up because organizations would be hesitant to hire a permanent Scrum Master. So they're like one team, one Scrum Master, right? Because they're like, oh, that's a lot of overhead. I don't want to spend that money because I don't understand what I get for that money. And they're not producing code, so what are they really producing? You know, that kind of viewpoint, right?
Yeah, exactly
like,
that.
Yeah. But also organizations like that also turn around and they have layers and layers and layers of middle managers.
Of course they do. Project managers,
directors of the Go look at the HR department. Like a coordinator of this, a director of that, manager of this, HR, VP, whatever. Like it's 17 people in the HR department, and they're worried about adding a Scrum Master to 2 development teams.
Right. Yeah. Those organizations that are like called top heavy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The reason I bring that up about Agile coaching is because like one of the fixes that we talked about before we were thinking about doing this topic for the podcast today was center of excellence type models, where you put all your Agile coaches in the center of excellence and then you deploy them to kind of float around your organization to float like a butterfly. I don't know what. Yeah,
they basically go around and inject their expertise here and there, and so it's kind of, it reminds me of bees, really. You just go to the next flower and do something over there and fly over somewhere else.
Is that not a good model? What is the issue with that model? It seems like in theory, it seems like a good model.
In theory, it would seem like a good model as underpinned by the numbers also, right? Because you only need a few of these people that are just floating around.
Yeah.
But in practice, what happens is before they make a difference, they're out of there because they're being pulled to another team. Oh. So they go in and they prescribe and they say, well, thou shalt do these things because that's how we do Agile, right? And then they take off. Well, the teams kind of sort of limp along depending on what guidance they get from their scrum masters and product owners, etc. Not really following good practices consistently.
Yeah.
Certainly not evolving, because it's not like one and done. You've got to inspect, and every team's unique and all of that stuff. So you've got to follow what works for this team, not what was initially started. It doesn't necessarily have to stay that way, right? But that mentality is not present with the coach gone. So people just simply check boxes.
What's the? I know we're cutting way ahead to the next topic. What's the fix for that? Like, is the fix to give the individual traveling agile coach? I'm gonna call him suitcase agile coach.
Suitcase agile coach.
Is the fix to give the suitcase agile coach the choice of when to jump, or is the fix to give the team the thumbs up, thumbs down of like we feel confident to take like? Or do you build some other score in there? What I understand the problem from what you just said, I should have started with this. So what I heard was that was annoying things that Brian hears when he hears things. I think the fix there would be some kind of agreement between both the team who's being coached and the coach for the team to say, I'm ready to move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
and then not moving that coach until that agreement can come together.
Yeah, I think that is sound. I also think that it's important to realize there is not a step function. Okay, one day the coach is gone. If you do that, you're assuming a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you don't rip the Band-Aid like that. I think it's up to the coach to say, make the team less and less dependent on them or anybody else. See if they can really self-manage, get them to that point, and then start deploying some of the tactics that coaches do. Come in and don't speak. I have mic issues sometimes, and see who wants to jump in, right? Give them the option to speak up first. Those kinds of things. Don't show up to a stand-up one day and then see how it went, right? You have to ask people, or you can come in late and see if they're just waiting around for someone to show up, or do they say, all right, let's just get going, right? It's been 5 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever, and they just go. Those are the sorts of things, but they take time. And so if the coach understands how to do that well, they can eventually start coming out of some of these events, right? And then they can say, okay, I'm going to commit, put me as optional on these things, and I may jump in at any point. So now they're gone, but not really gone. And occasionally they will randomly jump in to see if the team is still practicing sound principles or not. So it's not they're gone. They're still there.
Do you think you can come up with a curriculum for that? I mean, there's probably a standard, assuming you're using Scrum. I mean, you could be using Kanban. It doesn't really matter. Do you think there are things that you could say, is the team stepping up to, or the developer stepping up to lead their own stand-up? Or is the team identifying blockers that they shouldn't be working in? I mean, it probably would be a lot of things, honestly. But do you think there's? I almost want to say standardized, but I don't. Do you think there's a standard list of things to like look for? Like, hey, if the team's doing 90% of these things on their own, when I'm not in the room, I'm ready to move on.
Absolutely. There are several versions of these kind of health checks, if you like, right? So there's a few of those that you can run, and some of those are really, really good. They don't blatantly ask the question, right? They kind of skirt around the topic, but that's what they're driving at. So you could do those things, but the trend is what's important here, not a snapshot. Right? So
we should put that together. That could be a really good podcast to be like, hey, these are the things to look for to know that your teams are pulling ahead. You know what I mean? As far as pulling ahead, lagging behind, I mean, everything's different, but like
they're improving or not, let's say.
Generally, if your teams are doing this, they're getting more advanced. I brought this up recently at my work. I was like, I eventually, and I talked about this on the previous podcast. I was like, I eventually would like to, as a product person on the team, to not have to drive during refinements or sprint review, or not reviews, sprint plannings, refinements. Basically, anytime a work item has to be brought up on the screen and things be changed in the work item, acceptance criteria, as a whatever person I want, whatever, like that kind of stuff. If the team has the, like, what I think of as business analysis skill that I have, even if they are distributed between, like, this person knows to always ask for what user, this person always asks what the user wants, even if the team has it distributed where they can put it together, this person has a really good eye for breaking down acceptance criteria. this person has a really good eye for splitting stories, that kind of thing. If the team combined has all those skills, that would be, for me on a checklist, I would want the team to be like, the team can take total ownership of writing stories, grooming, maintaining, whatever you want to call it. Refining, breaking.
Yeah. No, you're right. So those are great points to put on a health assessment, if you like, or healthy agility type of assessment, right? And there are so many, to your point. I mean, literally dozens of these things.
A lot, I would imagine.
So you could do that. And an Agile coach should be doing that, right? Yeah. Do it up front, do it a little while later. But again, my point really is it's the trend that drives the decision to pull away slowly. So it's, again, not a step function, right? You don't just leave one day. But yeah, so those are some of the tools, and I think that's an excellent idea for us to put a list like that together.
Would you expose this to the team? Would you show them their grades while you're... So if you're, like, going back to the... we already said, well, you don't want to have a COE where, like, all your talent is in that COE and they kind of just rock star into your... They just show up... I was going to show up drunk is what I was going to say. They just show up with a cowboy hat and sunglasses on, like hungover. You know what I mean? They just show up and like, just do this. That's not what that's not what we're saying. You don't want that. You want someone who's actively engaged, but they're borrowed from a different group, basically. But when you're borrowed from a different group, the problem is you can be taken back by that group prematurely. That's kind of where we're going with this.
Right.
In order to get around that, to avoid that, kind of make it be an agreement between the two that, hey, I see the team has progressed. Here's the list that I'm using to satisfy that the team has progressed. I was going to say to prove.
To illustrate?
Yeah, to illustrate that the team has progressed. Yeah, the things that we agree on. The team agrees that they progress here. I agree that since I'm the expert on this, I agree. The team agrees. They think they can handle this stuff on their... Yep. Basically, the team's committing to handle the stuff on their own. The Agile coach is just affirming that, yes, I think they can do it. And then once you agree on enough categories, you can cut out.
Exactly. I mean, there are tools out there that you can use for this. So just going back, would I expose this to the team? Absolutely, right? Because they need to know where their weaknesses are.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. This would be really neat to see. From a team's perspective, it'd be really neat to see. These are the things that the organization expects you to take ownership of.
Yeah, an agility radar of sorts, right?
Yeah,
so
that'd be neat.
As long as you're being anonymous, you're not calling anybody out, because it is the team, right?
They'd be general. They'd be fairly general.
Yeah.
The team understands how to split stories and when it's important to.
Yeah, and I'd phrase it differently, right? Have we suffered from stories that are too large, zombie stories that won't get done in a sprint, keep coming across, those kinds of things. So you have to tailor it to the team, but there's not a lot of tailoring needed. You could probably take one of those templates and quickly massage it into something usable. The trend is important here. You've got to establish X number of data points.
Right.
Define X, doesn't matter. How long has the team been around? How long have they worked with each other? Are they brand new? And is the Agile coach really training people to work in an Agile way for the first time ever?
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables there. But I look for 3 to 4 data points. So do this kind of an assessment 3 to 4 times, and you will see a marked difference between the last two, always.
Yeah.
If you're not doing your job right, basically. But when you get to the point where on that health radar, Agile health radar, let's say you're scoring from 1 to 5, and I'm thinking about a graph that has spokes, and the team is between a 4 and a 5, you're there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there might be some spokes where they're short. So that should be the focus. So you're not pulling out completely, but you're emphasizing that. So just for those kinds of events, you could show up and make sure that you're bolstering their capabilities just there.
You also brought up something while we were planning this about the COE that I had never thought about. With a COE, having Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, whatever in your COE, I've seen that before. It kind of makes sense to me as well, because it's kind of like the COE is kind of like a high-powered community of practice, honestly, to me, just organizationally codified community. I don't know if I really am signed on to the idea of a COE organizationally and keeping the resources there. I don't think they really belong there, but also I'm cutting ahead. But you also were like, maybe a COE can be applied to product people, or a COE can be applied to architects or whatever. And then when you brought that up, I started to question everything about my life. No, I started to question wait, you can't have product people can't be in a separate org over here and borrowed out to the team members. That's not the way product works.
So that's a really good point, right? About product owners specifically.
Yeah.
We were talking about different roles,
Yeah.
maybe BAs also forming their own community of practice, or whichever. With product specifically, when you think about what a product owner's core skills are, right?
Yeah.
And leaving aside the domain you're working in
Right.
for the time being.
Right.
So their core skills are really analyzing the needs of the business, understanding the market, understanding the user, the what and the why in terms of the product, right? Leaving aside the how. If they understand that, and if they have those core skills, they can be applied to any project. So if we agree on that, it means that you could have a bunch of these people together that are constantly sharpening their tool set, but they can be seconded to a team to go in and quickly put these things in place, right? So what is the market? Do we understand that? Who is our customer? Do we understand that? Who are the personas? Do we understand those, right? I think that there is some merit there. Now, that still leaves a delta, right? And the delta is specific knowledge to the domain, because they may not have that, probably aren't expected to have it in more than one domain anyway.
Right.
However, I believe that delta could be bridged by getting SMEs to help you.
Sure.
These people belong in the user community.
Yeah.
They've been there for a while. They are the end users, consumers of the product. They're your SMEs. Enroll those into your team. There's no reason why you can't do that. So I would say, there's merit in having a community of excellence practice of product owners. I think it can work.
I'm not convinced.
You're not convinced
I'm not
yet?
convinced. No, because I think this goes into I don't know if I'm cutting ahead for this one. Like, it goes into the fixes. Give me permanent fixes for finite resources. The first permanent fix for finite resources, honestly, in any of these categories, either finite, which we never came back to finite dev team members or dev teams. Like, organization only has one dev team. Like, dream up all the things you want to do in the world, but there's only one dev team to do it at a time. The fix, it's not even really fixed. There's some people going to be out there like screaming into their their AirPods or whatever. The fix is ruthless prioritization for all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. In that case, you're basically constrained on your capacity to deliver, right? You have one team.
Right.
Dream up everything you want, but then just slice it so that you're picking the most valuable piece of that whole dream and deliver that, because that's all you've got capacity to deliver. Yeah, absolutely. I agree fully.
Is this I'll build you a car in any color you want, as long as that color is black?
Yeah.
That's this conversation.
Right.
Like and the business will say, well, I want green. You can't have green.
You can have a very, very dark shade of green. It looks like black.
Yeah, it looks like black. Well, I'll call it green. Marketing. But, that's not acceptable. I want green. Okay, well, I need more money. You need to hire a new team. Well, I can't do that. Well, then you get black. Every single
black
time.
now, but when we get to the point where I have another team, we'll come out and spray it.
Yeah, we're kind of back to the beginning of the podcast where we were talking about like some of this stuff is the structure of your organization, or maybe that was maybe it was some of our prep where we were talking about the structure of your organization.
Yeah.
Some of this you have to present back to the leadership. Now, I really am talking about the leadership
Yes,
of
you
your.
are.
I'm not talking about the
People
management.
that control the purse
I'm
strings.
talking about the leadership of your organization. Where do you want the org to go? Because if you want to develop cars that are both black and green, now I have to hire some more paint people. I have to enhance the paint shop. I need 2 paint booths. I need to invest more money. I need the leaders of the organization to say, look, is it really in your vision of the organization to develop cars that are both green and black? Because you said you didn't care about paint before.
Right.
So when you didn't care about paint, we could produce black, and that's what we could do in the budget you gave us. Do you really want to spend more money to do this? And you have to have a conversation at that level. And now we're at a level where I don't know how useful we're being on the podcast. This is like the typical place we get to on a podcast where we're near the end of the podcast, because I'm saying like if I think of like a Scrum Master, Agile coach, whatever, listening to this podcast. Okay, well, I don't talk to my C-suite about like, but if you want to deal with some of these what I think of as blockers. I worked on this yesterday. Today I'm going to work on... Yesterday I worked on getting the doors on the car. Today I'm going to put the glass in the car. Right. And I'm blocked because there's a car in a paint booth, so I'm blocked. I'm not going to be able to...
remove that impediment.
I'm not going to be able to get my car out the paint booth.
Right.
Well, if we had 2 paint booths, one painting black and one painting green, we can move twice as fast. Now I, the Scrum Master, have to pick this up, bring it up to the next level up in the organization, wherever my workers are, whatever the next level up is, I got to coach up in the organization. Ooh, angry tweets.
Dude, angry tweets, because that is your role as a Scrum Master.
And the message you might get is, and you might not like it, which is, I don't care. Paint booth is a paint booth. We only produce black cars. I don't care if you're blocked. It is what it is. I'm not spending more money. I'm not buying another paint booth.
That's a positive message. Because now you've got direction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a positive message.
Now you understand the confines, the finite resource. You understand the confines in which you are to operate.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave somebody this advice recently. I was like, look, like you need to really understand leadership's approach to the organization. And you need to tell them, hey, why are we not doing X, Y, Z? Because we could be, I don't know, a lot more effective, a lot more efficient. Whatever your ideas is. You need to have a back and forth conversation. Because if their vision is, look, I don't see a reason to take suggestions from my team members. Like, I know what to build. I don't really need to talk to customers and get feedback about what to build. You're never going to get that clear of a message from your leadership. But if you have the benefit of getting that clear message, look, I don't care what the customer says they want. We're going to build what I say because I know the best.
Right.
You now, like, the ball's back in your court with what to do with that information.
That's right.
If you go to your leadership and you say, hey, we could do twice as much work if you would just invest in another paint booth. I don't know why we're going back to this car producing example. Probably because it's very clear.
Yeah.
And the leadership says, no, I don't want to do that. I'm happy with the amount that we're punching out cogs in the machine. I don't want to spend more money on this. I'd rather use my money on whatever else.
Right.
You've identified it. You've brought the conversation up, and I almost want to say you could document the conversation of, like, in your epics going forward, in your stories going forward, in your work going forward. You can say, we have talked about this. This is the vision for the product. We're only black cars.
Yeah, that could be in your stories even, right?
It certainly can.
I would say so. So, yeah, I agree. So, just to recap what you said there.
Somebody
Scrum
needs
Master's
to.
role.
I have no idea what I just said. So
the Scrum Master's role is to coach up
Yes.
in the organization,
Yes.
right? Look it up. It's in the Scrum Guide now, right? So don't be afraid to bring up this stuff with your leadership. Go past your management. Get away. Find a way.
Yeah.
Wait outside the elevator for them to ride up with.
I don't even think you're going over them. I think of this from the perspective of the developer who is working the Scrum Master role part-time, or maybe the dev lead who steps in as a Scrum Master, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think of it as stepping over your manager. Like, your manager has a place, carry out plans of the leadership or whatever, but you should feel free to ask, where are we headed?
You should,
if that's not clear, you should ask, where are we headed? That's not stepping over. And if you're in an organization where it is perceived as stepping over, you have other issues that are not related to agility and Scrum and the stuff we're talking about.
You do. I was just really referring to some Scrum Masters that say, well, I don't talk to my C-suite. I talk to my director.
Probably don't.
But you should, right?
Yeah.
Punch out an email. Do something. Yeah, I agree. Fixes. While we're on the subject of fixes, right?
Yeah.
So one potential fix might be to bring in outsiders, bring in consultants to inject a little bit of expertise.
Yeah.
Because they are the experts,
Right.
and then they pull away. Other than the obvious, which is they're not vested in your organization, they're hired hands, they will be gone.
Uh-huh.
What are some of the stipulations around using those pros and cons maybe of that, right? So I want to go back to what we already talked about as a role that might be a finite resource role, and that's the DevOps, right?
Yeah.
So you could bring in somebody who understands the world of DevOps. They can come in and fix you up.
Yeah.
And obviously they will train your developers and how to use and how to maintain, etc.
Mhm.
And they're gone. Nothing wrong with that.
I wasn't even thinking about that, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I would say that I think in this podcast, I think we already said, like, that's one of the rarer skill sets. Is that a right word? Or more rare? Rarer?
Rare.
I don't know.
More rarer is not right.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's the one we'll use then. More rarer.
Rarer.
It doesn't even sound like a real word when you say it like that. Everything we talked about, having shared services and having COEs and all that kind of stuff, my fix for this is don't do any of that. Just decentralize these positions, where if you're going to have a grouping of lead level people or shared service people, cool, have them, but have them only support a few teams. and then now they're shared between a few teams. And then when you add more teams, you need to add more people, because whatever this logical grouping of people that shares across the teams, that skill set, if you have 3 teams and 4 or 5 people support these 3 teams, and then you want to hire 3 more teams or whatever, then just duplicate your leads level over here, and whatever positions you have here, just multiply them over here. Now, it's a tough decision to make organizationally when to do that kind of stuff. But the reason I bring it up is I think decentralization in your org structure is the fix for this. I'm not saying don't have shared services. I'm just saying have shared services, but limit the audience that they are shared to, so they're not spread so thin. Oh boy, the DevOps thing is a great example of how to supplement what I'm talking about until you can have somebody permanent in that role, because you can have somebody contracted for a period of time to skill up your team members so that maybe they have that skill and they can support themselves. And then over time, you bring people back in, maybe whatever. They bring somebody in for 3 months, train up your teams, bounce them out for a while, and they come back in later. It could be a really great relationship that you have with particular contract vendors and that kind of stuff. They would love to, hey, every couple months I'm going to need your person for so much amount of time or whatever. I'm sure they would love you if you,
sure.
Normal relationship like that. Like, it would be great. And maybe you don't have to spend what it would take to hire permanent people to do these roles. I don't know.
I think that model has a lot of validity, personally. I mean, most of these people that we talked about, these roles that are in the finite resources arena, they're expensive, right? These skill sets aren't cheap. So going outside the organization for short periods of time might be very cost effective.
I also, one of the things that ties in with this podcast that doesn't really fit into what we're talking about, because we're kind of talking about development, QA, product, inside the Scrum model, which is your team eventually is going to lose people and have to hire people in. So you're going to need a recruiter, an HR professional to help you understand how to interview and teach you the skills. Like, I think of that in this model as well. In the shared services model, you need to pull people down from the corporate level, because usually those people sit up with the C-suite.
Yeah,
they don't sit with your teams. They're above you.
They're above the teams for sure.
Right. Yeah. No,
absolutely.
No. Now, like, what I'm proposing is all the skills that are not on the team. Some kind of model where you can pull those people down to help your team for a while. Yeah. That, like, what percentage and how thinly they're spread, I don't know.
I think it evens out, to be honest. So let's say HR, for instance, right? So they are in the C-suite or next to the C-suite, but they're still working on HR issues for X number of teams.
Yeah.
So to your point, you get an HR person, HR admin, whoever it is, from that body of HR people, sit with a team for the finite time they need to, right? Get them up and running, and then they go to another team. I think that's value in that, because usually you just wait. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because they're serving so many teams, but really nobody effectively.
Yeah. My typical experience with this is you have to go to your, like, in the shared services model, your department lead or the person who basically is the on paper manager of all the developers across all the teams, right? I don't know what you call that. What you would think of as like a resource manager. A resource manager. Like a resource manager. I'll use the example of where I was in, which was a resource manager for the test resources across all the teams. And when I wanted to hire another tester, I'd have to put some kind of rec in with the director across the whole development test department, and then they would have to reach out to the HR organization that sat up with the executive level, and then they would have to approve the position. And then if they approve the position, then it would come back down through that manager and then come back down to me, who again is not on a team, all middle managers, all up through the middle management hierarchy, and then back down to me. And then I would be able to publish a job description. HR would put the job description out on the different forums, and they would feed me the candidates as it came through. And then I would have to do all of the vetting, all the phone screens, all the in-person interviews, all the scheduling, all that kind of stuff. Right. Where's my HR help at that point? You know?
Yeah.
Why am I abandoned now? Once one floodgate is opened by some high level in the chain, why am I left alone? Why am I not assigned an HR person to help me along the process to make sure I'm not even not doing the best job I can or getting the best candidate I can, not breaking the law. Like, what, you know what I mean? What if I'm a terrible person and like I'm like, oh, I don't want to hire women or whatever? Like,
this is true. This is very true. It's just a very inefficient way of doing things. Right now, the way these things are set up. Right?
I apply it to HR, hoping that people listening to this or watching this will, like, a light bulb will go off in their head, because I'm like, oh yeah, well, he's talking about HR because HR is most stereotypically and, in my experience, routinely left out of the tech process, whereas all this rest of stuff we're talking about, the team members, not enough teams to do the work, and a solution architect or the architect or the dev lead that doesn't really sit on the teams, but they kind of rock star in and out of the team, not enough testers, like you deal with that stuff day to day, and somehow you figure your way around it and that kind of stuff. But like, if you start thinking about it, it's like, yeah, why am I left out of helping me hire people and get the best people in and vet the best candidates? Why am I not helped with bringing the best? Why is nobody helping me with budgetary concerns of like the money that goes into my development process and the profit that it brings into the company and how to view those numbers? Why is no one helping me with those things?
They should be. I mean, all of these elements should be decentralized at the team level. I'll give you another example of this, right? Which is coming up with QRGs or whatever they call quick reference guides and all of those sorts of things. Yeah. So oftentimes what happens, I see, is when the solution that's being developed is at a point where everybody on the team feels like, yeah, it's working, kind of, right? It's working pretty good. We're about to go into UAT, but our users will need something. Yeah. You just don't put them in front of a machine. We'll bring in a skill from one of these other groups. That person comes in with the express purpose of writing documentation, essentially, and creating Confluence pages, or whatever, however that's done. Mm-hmm. But they have no knowledge of the product. They're coming in just to do that. So their way of doing it is to do interviews, right? They'll interview people and say, tell us about your system, and they'll be typing it up, and they'll wordsmith it, right? If that person was there at the beginning when the requirements were being gathered, you can do just enough documentation there, and then polish it off as you go, right? Done. But that doesn't mean, so what I'm not advocating, everyone, is you need a person like that full time on every single team, right? We're not saying that because they are a finite resource. Those skills are specific.
It'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice, but not feasible, right? Yeah. For many reasons. So yeah, I mean, there are other examples like that I'm sure that we haven't even explored. Yeah. I just thought about that one.
Yeah, I'm sure we missed a bunch of stuff, but this is an interesting topic because everyone deals with it, but that you deal with it as in like it's just something we have to...
You put up with it.
Yeah, it's just something we have to put up with. We're never going to be given enough teams to do the work or people to do the work, or testers especially, in my experience. And we kind of figure out what to do. Like, there are real fixes for this.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if the org actually delegated to the proper teams what needs to be done, and at the organizational level separated the budget to what the teams needed, maybe they wouldn't have so much bloat in the middle of the organization.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe they'd be able to run a little leaner. There's a word right there.
Yeah. Just delayer.
Delayer, yeah. Well, hey, if you got other things that could be decentralized, other things that could be distributed is a good one, yeah. Other things that could be distributed to the teams in this manner, or if I know there's got to be frameworks out there for this. I just don't know about them. Maybe there's frameworks for decentralizing your organization and kind of taking advantage of what we're talking about. I don't know.
There are some out there, I'm sure. And I also know that some of these smart people listening and watching could tell us, right? So please let us know in the comments below.
Finite resources.
Fact of life, I guess.
Yeah, doing more with less.
Do more with less, exactly. Do more with less.
Doing less with more. No.
That is too common out there already.